And when we don't think of it as a document, instead we think of it as a activity on the step of us having a successful project, it flips it and it makes it all about the actual, what I like to say, the people behind our projects, instead of the deliverables and the tasks that are on our projects.
You've got such exciting breadth and depth of experience. And I know some of our listeners are like, wow, I want to do that. I want to be a project manager. I want to have these opportunities. And I know that a lot of folks have been looking to you and me as well, who are interested in transitioning, whether it is a straight transition from a different career or formalizing their project management know-how, if you will, into getting the project manager title, for instance. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain around, what have you seen as the reason for folks really picking up their interest around project management? What is kind of what you've heard out there, the scuttlebug, I think is the term my grandmother used to say, and what have people been saying to you as they've come to you seeking mentorship and guidance as to how they can pivot into the project management space?
Yeah, I want to go back first to something you said, is the title. Is it titles in general don't matter in project management, because many people manage projects and they don't have an official title, nor may they ever have an official title of project manager. And I fit into that category. Is when I left healthcare, I was invited into the IT department for the large hospital organization I was working at. And they didn't give me a project management title. They actually gave me a systems analyst title, which I didn't even know what that title meant. And I had to get trained into that position. And I didn't realize until I was there about 6 months to a year that I was actually also managing projects. I had to have someone bring it to my attention that I was a good project manager. And it was because of, like I said earlier, all of those skills I brought forward with me from my past lives, careers, everything into that one role. So then, yes, I did end up getting the word project in my title, but I didn't have manager after it. It was then called a project and support analyst. And so I think we have to understand that, yes, if we want, many people come to me and say, I want to be a project manager. And so they start doing everything to give them that title. But that's actually not what you need to do. Instead, you need to just start leading projects. And that might be the current place that you're working, because project managers, we can identify a project quite quickly, especially as we get better at this as we move along. And I'll give you an example that's not work related. When I was on maternity leave with my youngest, my oldest was in a preschool. And so while I was on maternity leave, carrying around my little one with me, I was volunteering at the preschool. And I could clearly see that all of their art supplies and their whole process around their art supplies needed cleaning up. And I
You
was on
didn't.
maternity. And so I had, my little one on my chest in the little carrier, and I was like not only cleaning up all their closets, but I was creating a new process for them on how to streamline their art projects, because we all know preschools. And that's what project managers do. So, going back to the workplace, is those things that need cleaning up. This is what we're good at. And if you find you're in a job role and that does not call to you, that it's not aggravating you, that the office supply closet isn't cleaned up, or that a new process could be created, then perhaps project management isn't actually for you, because these are what project managers do. We want to make things better. We want to improve processes. Going back to when I first left being a healthcare provider into IT, I was there, and after the first week or so, even a couple of days, the system went down. The entire system of the hospital went down that we were supporting. And I was brand new to the job, so I didn't know what to do. And a lot of people just went back to work because they said that, like, meaning just to their desks, like nobody was kind of moving in a direction, because they said, the software engineers were working on fixing the problem. And I stood up and said, well, isn't there something we can do to support them? What is the process around how do we, can we start making phone calls? Can we let people know? Can we start handing out something? Well, that's what I did. And And the next day I got called in by my brand new boss and I thought I was going to be in trouble. No, he handed me downtime procedures to now create for the hospital organization, because
Nice.
up till that point it was so piecemealed. Yeah, it wasn't that they were not fixing the system, but they didn't have the support processes in place to help those that were fixing the system and to keep the communication going. And so this is what project managers do. And so back to your question, there's a lot of things that you can do to become a project manager. And in fact, your title may not come until your very last job you take before retirement that actually has the project manager title after your name. And that's okay, because good project managers, we don't necessarily feel like we have to have the title if we're getting that satisfaction out of managing very clean processes that are making a difference in the people that we work with.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you say that. And a couple things with that is that in the 20 years I've been a project manager, I've never had the title project manager. I've been a research assistant, senior consultant, managing consultant, engagement manager, and now business owner. And as a business owner, you and I both know you have to project manage your business, project manage yourself. And I'm reading an excerpt here where, project managers can come in all kinds of titles like delivery manager, implementation manager, consultant, analyst, executive assistant. I've met plenty of executive assistants that are project managers, account manager, editor, change manager, business owner, and entrepreneur. And this comes from my book where I explain that to people that you don't have to have the title to still do the project management things. And I think, there's definitely this fixation, put yourself in that position. And like you said, take the lead, because that's what we have to do as project managers is take the lead, take that initiative and move something, right? So change the process. If you see that there's an opportunity for improvement, update the document. If you see there's an opportunity for clarity and getting people to actually complete it. So I appreciate you saying that. And hopefully the listeners are also like, okay, I don't have to be fixated. And when I see a job, for instance, on LinkedIn, that's a project manager and 200 people applied, and then there's this analyst position and they have in the description doing project management things, you can still get the experience as well. And they might even still have like, project management certification is a plus. And so it
Yeah.
still puts you in that position to be well poised for ultimately, if you just have to have that title, but everything's negotiable too. You can go in there and analyst and then negotiate the title to be project analyst if that
That's what I
really is
did.
something.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Everything. Don't think you just have to negotiate salary. It's also
Yeah.
negotiating your title, benefits, anything of that sort. The worst they can say is no, but you definitely
Yeah.
don't get it if you don't ask. Well, I think that's great. Well, Barbara, has there been let me restate that. Tell us about how mentorship has helped you, and in turn, how you saw the opportunity to take on mentoring others as they are pivoting into their careers into the project management field.
I have been very fortunate in that I've been surrounded by a lot of supportive people in both my career as a healthcare provider, of which I had mentors there. And that kind of fell naturally, though, on the healthcare side, because when you're a brand new healthcare provider, you have to rely on other people. Otherwise, you're never going to learn how to do the things that we do, and especially complex procedures. And so when I carried that over, I found that there were people that I had to struggle to get information from. There was more on especially the technology space, there was a lot of heads down. And back then we still were all working in person, we weren't remote. And so there was a lot of heads down. So I had to figure out how to get those heads up to help me. And I was very fortunate in that one of the first people that I ever worked with was a wonderful mentor and taught me the basics of project management, of which I then had to take to the next many levels beyond that. And I found that I did that through Asking questions, reaching out to people, inviting them out for a coffee. Can you tell me how you do this? We also call it informational interviews. Hey, can I sit down with you
Yep.
for about, an actual 15, 20-minute session where you tell me about how did you get to manage, for instance, I'm a healthcare provider and I sat for an interview once, an informational interview about someone who manages water projects in California. And I sat down and had the conversation of how this is so complex. How do you get water running through this state in ways? And they told me all about the project management techniques they use. Also, by joining various groups, so various communities, I think are important on how that could go. Not all of them work for everybody. Some of them can be maybe too techy, or some can be maybe too, healthcare-y. So you have to kind of find ones that give you that right balance. But do know that learning, let's say you're in software development, talking to a healthcare provider who's done technology projects can be very beneficial to help you learn about software development. So don't rule out talking to someone who's not in your field. There's a lot of information you can get out of there. And I think that also understanding that we all have different life experiences that bring us to where we have. And so it isn't just necessarily of how to create a project charter, but it's about what that other person or other people's life experiences of getting all the stakeholders onto the same page. I'm all about building trust within projects, and creating a project charter that actually is actionable, you can actually do something with, is actually a trust building exercise, because everything that goes into that project charter has to come accurately from the stakeholders that are going to be involved in this project. And when we don't think of it as a document, instead we think of it as a activity on the step of us having a successful project, it flips it and it makes it all about the actual, what I like to say, the people behind our projects, instead of the deliverables and the tasks that are on our projects.
Thank you for saying that. I've had some senior project managers sometimes say, like, the project charter, it's like, don't get fixated on that. I'm like, oh, that can be such a great starting, right? Kick
Yeah.
off conversation. I often refer to it as like your sales document that gets everybody excited about what we're doing, and it clarifies, at least what your role is as the project manager and who signs off on things. So I love your perspective on it, that it's this collaborative conversation that you get to have, bringing in people's insights, and it kicks off the activities to really have a good first start to your project. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special series with our guests. If you enjoyed these episodes, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring even more great content to you. I'm Crystal Richards, and this is Real Life PMP Podcast. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and celebrate all of your wins.